Welcome to the Gleeples Meeple, a podcast all about board games where strategy meets laughter and every roll of the dice is a chance for analysis paralysis. In this episode, we look into the future and talk about our most anticipated games of 2024. We get our oxygen tanks ready to talk about our game of the show, Space Base. And you, the Gleeples, get to play along as the hosts get put in the hot seat with this week's game challenge. All this while JK tries his hardest to derail the episode.
I can do it.
So suit up, because we're launching our ships from all of our sectors and you don't want to be left behind. Amigos, allies, fellow space commodores, welcome back to the table.
There's a lot of pressure on us for this episode. We had some really good reviews, so that means we've actually got to start thinking about this and be good.
Also, we're super confident that by episode 2, you know our names, because I just realized we didn't say them yet.
Well, why don't we do that?
All right, that sounds good. I'm Emily.
Dwayne is ready.
I'm JK. I don't like long walks on the beach, and my favorite scent is cucumber.
I'm James, and I like short walks on the beach. Are we a match made in heaven?
No, I don't like the walks on the beach.
Oh, at all?
No,
No,
it's atrocious.
none.
I'm way too out of shape for that.
The amount of walking that JK would like to do on the beach is 0.
Yes.
I have another surprise for you guys.
All right.
I like surprises.
Surprise.
Instead of a riddle, though, I have a board game haiku.
Okay, let's do it.
Green tendrils stretch across plains. Life blooms in space's grasp. Humanity's hope.
The green tendrils are making me think Cthulhu.
Yeah, but the planes threw me off a little bit.
Same.
One more time.
Planes.
One more time.
One more time. Green tendrils stretch across plains. Life blooms in space's grasp. Humanity's hope.
In space's grasp.
You've all played this.
Is there a Cthulhu in space?
I don't know about the green tendrils. I think that's just like I'm seeing like vines across plains.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
Oh.
Okay.
Viticulture. It's clearly viticulture.
But I haven't played
Because
viticulture.
viticulture is wine in space.
Yes,
You're right, JK.
yes.
Yeah. Some have played it much more than others.
So he is talking about space.
Yes, space. Not space base.
Not
but space.
Space. Green tendrils in space. And some of us have played it much more than others.
Humanity's
is it
hope.
Yeah.
Welcome to the moon? No.
Battlestar?
Terraforming Mars?
You got it.
There it is.
Oh, Emily got it.
Well done, Emily.
I was like, that was only my most played game last year.
You'll be not surprised maybe how hard it is to write a haiku about a board game with enough clues to get you to
You don't
guess
have
it.
Yeah, that's not a lot of syllables to work with there. Way to go, James and Emily. James, thanks for bringing the game.
let's
Emily,
go.
thanks for bringing the game.
Okay, so important follow-up thing from episode 1. During the question and answer session that we did, you guys did bring up the fact that I've got a number of aquariums in my house to go along with the board game collection. And I'll have you know, within days of discussing that, one of my aquariums, the seal broke on it during cleaning. We had about 20 gallons of water on the floor. We had no fish mortality. But we moved them all over to other tanks. But
No
we
fish
opted,
were harmed in the
no fish
podcast
were harmed
curse.
in the making of this podcast. We did debate. It was an 18-year-old tank. We debated whether we wanted to reseal it or just move it on to another home. We put it out by the street corner, and somebody claimed it for their own. So
no fish were hurt, but that seal sounds like it's not going to pull through.
So you're saying I shouldn't ask about your salt and pepper shakers this episode?
Yes, please do not mention any valuables in my house. We don't want to have any more disasters after this.
Lest I incur the wrath of your spouse there.
It would be a shame if Arcadia Quest ended up on the curb looking for a good home.
Nope. Not happening.
So we still like each other enough to do this one more time, eh?
At least one more.
Yeah, you got a week. We'll see.
We got so much positive response from the community, from all of y'all listeners out there. Thank you. This is a fun thing to kick off, and man, y'all are just the best.
Talking to the host before the episode, I felt like going into episode 1, like recording it, I was like, let's just do it. Like, let's go. And now that like it's out there and like people are like talking to me about it, I'm like, oh wait, like, hold on. Now people like expect things of us.
And I know we looked at the metadata for this, and yes, VPNs could screw things up. But if you look at our statistics, technically somebody in California was listening to us. Technically somebody in Germany was listening to us. I don't know if I believe that or not, but that's pretty damn humbling. I kind of like that idea.
Yeah, shout out to our California listeners.
And our German listeners.
All right, well, we got some pretty fun content lined up for you guys this episode. And I thought it would be fun to spend a little bit of time looking into the future a little bit. So I know last week we kind of did some host introductions, but I thought I'd double down a little bit on I kind of get to know you somewhat with our most anticipated games of 2024. I know a lot of us follow Kickstarters and GameFound, all the crowdfunding stuff, and they just kind of get excited about what's next to come. And maybe this might help the listeners get a little bit of a peek into our gaming tastes. So I figured we can kind of go around the table and maybe go game by game and just take a peek into what we're most excited about.
It was really interesting to see which games we have in common. So James, for example, like both of us are kind of like looking forward to Clank Legacy 2.
Yes.
Would you like to start off talking about it?
Yeah, absolutely. So legacy games, man, hit and miss for sure. But this is probably the first Clank Legacy, which is a Clank Acquisitions Incorporated, based off of a Penny Arcade IP, if you're into Penny Arcade at all. The best legacy game I've played so far. And I've got a few under my belt. I mean, a handful probably. And this is by far the best one I've played.
That's what, like, I have a friend right now going through Clank Legacy, the first one. And I have, like, just over the past year have been introduced to, like, as many expansions of Clank as possible. And I have loved every single one of them that I've tried so far. And that's, like, one of my goals this year is to, like, play a legacy game. I actually picked up Pandemic Legacy Season 1 a couple weeks ago. But it was like I saw they were coming out with like Clank 2. I think we have some friends that like joined the Kickstarter, and I'm just like very excited to see what they think of it.
Yeah, I played it all the way through the first one with my wife and my father, actually. And it was a blast. I mean, that helps the memories for sure, getting to play games with my dad, right, at this point in time. But man, it was a fun experience.
And then moving on to another game that I also have in common with another host around the table, Inventors of South Tigris. JK, can you tell us why you're excited about it?
So I'm excited for this because it is the third game in the third trilogy from Garphill Games, or Garphill, however you pronounce their game company name. I'm a little excited about it. I'm also a little nervous about this. I feel like the games, as they've gone through each trilogy, are gradually ramping up in complexity. And after playing Scholars of the South Tigris, I feel like they may have left me behind for a little bit. I want to see if Inventors kind of hold steady or not. Scholars was tough. But what was the first one? Wayfarers was the first one. Wayfarers was pretty nice. In the last trilogy, really liked Architects and Paladins, but then Viscounts kind of left me behind. So it's that third one in each set, whether it's great or not.
All right, so this seems as good of an opportunity as any. Someone give me a primer on these trilogies, because I feel like I've played Viscounts, but that might be the only thing that I've played in the series.
What they've kind of done in each trilogy is take a mechanic and kind of modify it each time through. So the North Sea was largely worker placement. How would you describe the West Kingdom? West Kingdom was also worker placement, but it was a little bit different.
It was. I feel like the North Sea didn't have a particular mechanic in mind.
It kind of shifted with each game.
Yeah, it was them getting their feet wet with the trilogy. And then West Kingdom was definitely worker placement, different takes on it.
Yeah.
The last North Sea game, Raiders of the North Sea, kicked off that design, I think, philosophy. They carried it through into the West Kingdom. And then we ended up with South Tigris now, which is all dice manipulation.
Okay. Oh, I think I would like that proportion of the series. And also, originally there was a kind of a mini expansion or something that would let you tie several of the games together, kind of play it in a legacy light, I think.
They did that for sure in the West Kingdom series.
Which is the middle series,
the middle
right?
one. The middle
and beforehand it was North Sea was first.
Yes.
So all 3 of the North Sea games came out.
Yes.
And then we got all 3 of the West Kingdom.
North, West, and then South.
And it sounds like an East might be on the way.
It could happen.
Yep, they've already announced it. I want to say is it East Indies? I'm blanking all of a sudden. I watched the announcement video not too long ago. So yeah, East is on the way. It's all the cardinal directions will be covered,
Nice.
but 3 games in each.
So now I'm even more excited that I put this on my list. I've played Wayfarers of South Tigris. I've played Paladins of the West Kingdom, and I knew they were kind of like in the same universe, like same publisher and designer and stuff like that. And Paladins of the West Kingdom just really like tickled my brain. I was a little bit like nervous about worker placements. I thought I didn't like them, and then this was like kind of like the first one that I was like, oh no, this is really good. And so then I saw that like the inventors of South Tigris, and I was like, all right, like time to explore this. And now that I'm like realizing like, oh, there's even like more of that universe that I haven't explored yet, like just makes me look forward to it even more.
I feel like from my list and knowing you guys fairly well, I'm going to assume Kickstarter-wise that at least 3 out of the 4 of us backed Dice Throne X-Men Kickstarter.
I skipped it.
Did you really?
Ooh.
I meant to, and I missed out on it. I'll probably be looking for a secondhand copy at some point.
You know, I had to look myself in the mirror on that one because I have all the other Dice Throne. I got Dice Throne Marvel or Marvel Dice Throne. And then they had the X-Men Kickstarter, and I hadn't even opened Marvel yet. And I was just, I just had to be honest with myself.
I've been there. Yeah.
And just not let my backer finger go crazy. So I held back, and I hate it because if I had a choice, I'd rather have X-Men than Marvel, to be honest. But I just had to hold myself accountable. So,
Dwayne, did you, I know I pressured you to do so. Did you finally back Marvel United Multiverse?
Yeah, I went in for the $1, like right as it closed, and then immediately when the pledge manager opened, I was like, oh, I guess I'm getting all of this.
Yes. Yeah.
JK, would you mind doing like a quick explainer of like what it means to kind of like back a game or do a Kickstarter?
Yeah, so you'll see fairly regularly, different companies will market their games in different ways. Some of them will just simply be produced in-house, sold at retail through your friendly local game store or online if you choose any of those purchase avenues as well. But what you do see relatively often is companies will also solicit their game through one of 2 platforms, either Kickstarter or GameFound. When they do that, you're probably getting an upgraded version of that game. You're getting some nicer components, some extra bells and whistles, or at worst, you're just getting it before the general market gets their copy. They tend to be a little bit more expensive. Those games that are appearing on Kickstarter and GameFound tend to be a little bit more broad. It's not something that you're going to see in a store for $24. So you're looking at maybe $60 or up. In the case of X-Men Multiverse, we probably spent a couple $100 on this Kickstarter, which is the third one they've come out with. I am a sucker for pretty bits and bells and whistles. So if you want to throw some extra bonus material in a game, that's the way to loop me in.
yeah. And these platforms, originally when they launched were meant for like, small indie publishers, indie musicians, indie just project creators to try and get the money to launch their projects. But of course, anywhere there's money, big companies take notice and they hop in. So now it's kind of a mix of sometimes that pops up, but it's more of a tool now for even large companies to just get some early marketing face time to the public, to their potential buyers. But you get some cool rewards as a result of it. A third one that's coming up is a backer kit. I know Gloomhaven used that not too long ago, but yeah, that and Kickstarter and GameFound are kind of the top 3. So Tome Saga, Dwayne, is the connector for the West Kingdom series.
Okay.
Architects the Tome Saga can play all 3 together as a campaign. So
That's pretty neat.
I
like when companies go back and they're like, look, we've given you these bits and now we're going to make the bits even better by connecting them and having a through narrative for you to play.
Give us something off your list.
Off of my looking forward to list?
Yeah.
Well, I guess I'm looking forward to new Street Masters content since I just backed that. James, I kind of had a dice throwing situation where I looked at all of my unplayed Street Masters and was like, do I need this? But whereas you said no, I looked in the mirror and said, I cannot live without this product that I don't play. So I went ahead and packed that. And then on the side of things that I do play, and I will get us some play out of it, I backed the new expansion for Thunder Road, Vendetta, which Restoration Games is making some really nice products, and I'm really looking forward to see what they do with kind of adding a battle mode onto the game.
That game is so much fun. Simple, fun, crazy.
Simple, fun. I have got 3 plays of that in the last 2 weeks, and it has been very enjoyable.
I've noticed, and I've been jealous because I've gotten to play once. And I was like, oh, I want more of those plays because it was just a blast.
Now, 2 games that I'm curious whether they're on any of your lists. I added them simply because every top 10 list that I've seen for either late 2023 or what's coming out this year, both of these seem to be popping up. So how about Far Away? Has anybody added Far Away?
No, but it looks adorable.
Yes.
And I want to play it.
Clever little card game where you are drawing and playing a sequence of cards to your tableau. What's interesting is that when the game ends, I think you have like 15 cards or something like that. It's not a very long game. Your scoring is done in reverse order. So if you laid out a card super early in the game that requires all the other cards you played to score on it, you're not going to get those points because those other cards are going to be gone. So it's a nice thinky mechanic of a simple card game. Since nobody's getting that one, how about Veil of Eternity? Anyone heard about that one?
No, these have both missed my
Yes.
realm of consciousness.
I have it purchased, waiting to be shipped.
Nice.
Along with other things, I'm waiting for my order to get over a certain amount so I get free shipping.
Okay, I'll play yours before I decide to buy it. Or
I was about to say, I'm looking forward to seeing these at our board game meetups in the future.
In the future. And one more I just have to talk about on our list based on our episode last week. Heat, Heavy Rain, the new expansion to Heat Pedal to the Metal.
Yes.
Don't totally know what it's going to add. I assume more weather conditions, but I would also expect more tracks, more cars, more player content. That's going to be great.
Those weather conditions that we tried when we played the game a couple weeks ago now, like that got me sold on Heat. So I'm like looking forward to you buying that so I can try that.
Yeah, that's as soon as I see that pop up, it's getting bought.
Yeah, that took that game into high gear for me.
That's
Good
what.
fun. Well done.
Oh
Well
gosh,
done.
it just went right over my head. Good one, James. I had just like a few more off my list. One being Blueprints of Mad King Ludwig. And I almost reached out to Dwayne to ask if we could play Castles of Mad King Ludwig before this recording, but life is busy.
Life is life.
Because the first time I played it was at Dwayne's house, and I ended up winning. It felt like kind of pure luck. I landed into a good strategy. And so like my memory is like, okay, did I really enjoy that game, or did I just like win that game? And then like looking at the Blueprints of Mad King Ludwig, there is colored pencils involved. It's like you're kind of like making yourself a blueprint of the castle. And so like it looks like a more kind of like compact version of Castles, which was kind of nice because that game did take a lot of table space.
We did play the Colossal version, though, which the point of the Colossal version is to take a lot of table space.
That
That's
makes
the only
sense.
reason it exists.
Okay. I'll finish out my list. I saved the last two because they're just kind of like based off of like franchises that I'm interested in. Last of Us, Escape the Dark. I tried this board game demo at Gen Con last year, and it's like, I don't know if it was just because like the vendor hall is like really loud, really chaotic. Tried it. It felt complicated, but I'm interested to see how it's received when it finally kind of like releases. And then Saw, the Jigsaw Trials, is also coming out this year.
What kind of game is that?
And it's like, I don't even know. I'm just like, I really do enjoy the Saw franchise. So I'm like, I have to see what this is going to be like.
Is it like one of those escape room games?
Oh, yeah, we're going to put like Emily in a torture porn escape room kind of thing here.
It's like the darkest exit game you can play.
For real.
So about that Last of Us game, we met the publisher at Gen Con last year.
Yes.
They already had 2 games published, and the way they explained it to me, like Escape the Dark Castle was kind of their first iteration, pretty simple. You doing some basic combat. It's a very light adventure dungeon crawl, all resolved with dice and cards. And then there's Escape the Dark Sector, which is their sci-fi take on it, a little more complex. And then they said the new Last of Us game will be building on the mechanisms of the previous games, adding a lot more content, some more depth. So I'm really looking forward to having only played Escape the Dark Castle. I'm really looking forward to The Last of Us.
And that's what, like, coming from the video game, like, I thought thematically I really enjoyed it. But it was just like one of those like demos where I was like, okay, is this demo just like really confusing? Or like, I think the game is going to be better than my memory. And so that's why I put it on my list.
Convention hall demos are weird things sometimes.
For sure.
So a couple more that I'll mention from my list. One of them is a new game from designer Danny Garcia. It's Windmill Valley. So Danny Garcia got my radar last year with Barcelona.
Oh.
A really fun, super combo-y game.
Yeah.
It uses its central mechanism of it's action selection. But if you've ever played the 2-player game or seen it, Targi, Targi, where you have an intersection basically, and you put a worker down, and the actions you get are the 2 actions that are associated with that intersection. So if you go up and down in the column and row, you get those 2 actions. Very similar thing in Barcelona, but man, just super combo-y. This leads to this, leads to this. It was just, I really, really enjoyed it. And he had another game come out last year, which I missed, which was Arborea. But Windmill Valley is on my radar because of that. It's a pretty looking game. It's about tulip farms. So very, very different thematically, very different.
I feel like you really like the nature-y themed games, like with Wingspan, with Meadow, like...
I do. Speaking of Meadow, my other game on my list is an expansion. Well, not really an expansion, but kind of an offshoot product of Meadow called a Meadow Adventure Book. So Meadow has quickly become one of my definitely top 10 games. I mean, it might even be top 5.
That's what, like, I played that for the first
really
time
solid. Yeah.
a couple weeks ago. It was amazing.
Did you play it with the downstream expansion as well?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, game changer.
Oh,
yeah, it makes it even better. It's longer, but for listeners out there, it's a nature themed game with it's a game full of cards with wonderful animals and insects and flora and fauna and all that good stuff. And you're drafting these cards from the center of the table, bringing them out into your tableau in front of you, basically just your play area in front of you. And you have 10 imaginary slots for cards that just run left to right. And then you create stacks of cards on those, just building on top of each other, like spreading them out on top of each other. And so you're just, these cards are this huge tableaus building out in front of you as you're stacking these cards, and you're taking in consideration this animal eats this insect, which eats this little biome, and it kind of just works its way down in the ecosystem that way. Just a wonderful game. They released a great expansion called Downstream, which adds a whole river aspect to it. But this Meadow Adventure Book is supposed to be like a legacy deal. I'm going to read it straight off of Board Game Geek. It's a hybrid product combining features of a notebook and a board game that can be played as a legacy-like experience with scenarios building up to a campaign. So, I mean, you give me a legacy version of Meadow and I'm in. So, yeah, I'm excited about that one.
Okay. As we mentioned last week, we are based out of Nashville, and there is a game studio in Nashville called Ivy Studio. They are the makers of Moonraker, Fractured Sky, and several other games. They have a expansion coming out for a game called Veiled Fate. Now, the thing with Ivy Studios, you would think they're right in my wheelhouse. The games are gorgeous, and somehow I've just missed out on buying anything. So I think I'm going to take advantage of the fact that they're coming out with an expansion. They're offering the base game in the Kickstarter as well, and I'm going to load up on Veiled Fate. Veiled Fate is a really cool little game. It is cooperative deduction, where in the game you are taking control of a demigod. You want that demigod to win the game, but ultimately if it's so obvious that that demigod is yours, the other players will gang up on you. So you're doing other things to use the other gods in the game that you can also control, but you really want yours to be the winner.
Yeah, it was a really neat experience to play a game where everybody controls every other person's character while secretly trying to hide who your character is. Like it was a very neat experience, and I quite enjoyed it. but I'm really looking forward to trying it with that expansion later on because I think it's going to beef it up a little bit. I was talking about this with one of our friends recently, and he made a good point. Where, like the social aspect of it was really strong. He felt that the game behind it wasn't as interesting. It was strong, it worked, but it wasn't for him. It wasn't interesting. I did enjoy it, but I can definitely see where, I mean, if you look at this expansion, the way it adds to the board, it adds this whole central, I don't know what you'd call it, like
the castle.
Castle?
Yeah.
Yeah. It just looks really interesting. Really will probably level up the gameplay aspect of it. But I was surprised by how much I liked it.
And in the expansion, there's several different modes of play that you can add in as well to make it a little bit more interesting, more complicated with all the different players.
Dwayne, do you have any more on your list?
The only other one I have on my list, and this is kind of I am judging the book by its cover here because I have not done anything. I have not done any research on this game except for heard the title of it, and that is I Made You a Mixtape.
Nice.
If this game is not about being a 15-year-old teenager experiencing the sheer universal dread of spending hours of determining which songs will make the final cut on your mixtape, I'm going to be sorely disappointed.
When you're making a mixtape, do you put the best song at track 1?
No, you build up to
not.
that.
Yeah, you got to build.
Well, back in the day, that would have been the act break where you would have flipped the tape over on that best song on side A. But those days are over.
Yeah.
Emily, back in the day, we had to make mixtapes on actual tapes.
You know, my first car was a 1997 Honda Civic, and to listen to my iPod, I needed to do one of those like cassette tapes that had the little wire that plugs
adapter.
into
The fake tape that you had to put in there. Nice.
You could have just listened to tapes. They were cool once.
We had a few. I can't remember what they are now, but I am familiar with the term, the concept.
We will never have to sit through a cassette tape renaissance the way we have had to sit through a vinyl renaissance.
I don't think so. Yeah.
Yeah, probably not.
It is an inferior medium all the way around.
But yeah, so I think that's our 2024 most anticipated. Listeners, if you're more of a visual person like I am and all of those titles just went one ear and out the other, don't worry because I will be posting them on our Instagram. You can follow us at Gleeple Meeple Pod. That's GleefulMeeplepod. And then you can judge them by their artwork as well.
But don't get sucked in because you might open up your wallet and regret it.
Which is fine.
It's okay.
Do
it's
that.
Okay. Yes. No,
You
do
should
that.
do that.
Wait,
Don't
we
deprive
encourage
yourself.
this doesn't help us at all because we're only posting the games we're interested in and therefore already buying. And what we need to do is encourage our friends to buy the games we are not buying.
That way,
That's a good point.
Yeah.
yeah, you gotta share the wealth.
Yes.
So then they'll bring the games you're not buying
Yeah.
to the next board game night.
So
Good point.
we're going to take care of all those S and A rated games if we can get some people on those B through D tiers. I'm sure there's some diamonds in the rough in there.
It is going to be an awesome year. Lots of games, thousands of games released every year. That doesn't even scratch the surface. But with that, it's time for our game of the show.
All right, everybody. As Emily selected last show, this show's game of the show is Space Base. Space Base is published by AEG and is designed by John D. Clare. The artist is Chris Walton. It was released in 2018. The base game of Space Base, which is just fun to say, plays 2 to 5 players, but BGG says it's at its most gleeful with 3 to 4 players. JK, give us a rundown. How does one play Space Base?
Well, here's how you play it. In the game of Space Base, each of the players actively controls an outer space satellite where spaceships can dock. You have 12 docks on your satellite, numbered 1 through 12. The spaceships that appear in those docks all have something written on their card that is going to give you a bonus every time those ships are activated. There's a major bonus in the middle of the card and a minor bonus at the bottom of the card that we'll get back to. On your turn, you're going to roll 2 6-sided dice. Depending on what numbers come up, let's say you've got a 3 and a 4. you can choose to activate that bonus on spaceship number 3, spaceship number 4, or combine them and only activate spaceship number 7. You're going to take whatever those cards can give you, which is generally one of 3 things. It's either going to give you straight up money, or it's going to boost your income level, or it's going to give you points, which go towards your scoring to get to the end of the game. Now, at the end of your turn, you're going to take whatever cash you have generated, and there is an open market of new spaceships you can select from. When you choose one of those, you'll put it in your active dock for whatever number it matches up with. You'll then take that ship that's in the active dock and put it out into space by inverting it and putting that minor reward at the top of the card. Where that is important is that while you are rolling dice on your turn and selecting which of the ships in your main dock get to score that, all the other players are going to be looking at their ships that are out in space. And if they have matching numbers on those ships, they're going to get some rewards as well. As the game advances, you're going to be trying to get to 40 points. You do have the option to buy a ship on every turn. Note that when you do buy a ship, your money drops to 0, no matter how much you are spending on that ship. And then you're going to rebuild that over the subsequent rounds. There is one other type of card in the game, which is a colony card. Colony cards cost a lot of money to buy, and they're going to give you a lot of victory points. But when you install them into one of your docks, that dock is now dead to you. So if you choose to put one in Space 7, anytime a 7 is rolled, you can no longer use that spot. Your goal is to make up enough money, upgrade your ships, and get to 40 points faster than any other player. That's Space Base.
Thanks, JK. I love listening to you explain games, and it just occurred to me that the top of my board is space. Like, I don't think I never thought of it that way.
If the top of your board is space, does that mean the board is the base?
Oh.
Yeah, what's at the base of the board? I don't know. I'm confused.
Oh, man.
It's baseball.
Because it's like I kept thinking, I'm like, oh, these are my sectors, like Sector 7, Sector 8, so on and so forth. But yeah, it is my space.
Yeah.
Well, did y'all know, and I don't know if you caught this or not, or thought it was weird, the Space Commodores comment in the beginning. Did you actually know that thematically we are Commodores of the space station?
Okay.
Technically.
Okay. Okay.
And we're managing these sectors to help the ship's launch.
So this is a naval operation, right?
It's kind of space naval?
Space Navy?
Space Force. Space Force.
Yes. All right, so let's get into this a little bit. What did we like about the game?
Well, I will go first. And I'm also going to bring up a review we got from a listener. This is from Sarah. Space Base was one of the first games I played with this mechanism of being able to get rewards from die rolls, even when not on your own turn. And it remains one of my favorites. Being involved on each player's turn keeps the game engaging with minimal downtime. And I have to say that I agree. There have been games where I've played where it's like, you can't think of what you're going to do right before your turn. And so then that just adds to your turn time. And there's no engagement with other players. And so if you're playing a 4-player game, it's just you're waiting for 3 people to do their turn. Whereas in this game, I really do like, it's like, okay, JK rolled. Like, okay, what did JK roll? What number is that? And so
You're constantly engaged. There's no bathroom breaks in this game.
Yeah.
No, it will keep you busy.
Yeah, a really bad detriment to some games is player downtime in between turns. It can get really bad with heavy Euros, but even short games sometimes, right? You get player downtime or uninterested players because they know that by the time it gets back around to them, the board state will have changed so much that why even bother paying attention until it's my turn again? This isn't like that. I mean, every single turn, you're engaged. You're watching. You're interested in what's going on.
And then I think another thing I like about this game is it kind of brings out the part of my brain that likes to optimize. And so when I'm trying to pick cards from the space area, I'm looking for like, okay, what money do I have? And like, what's a card closest to the money I have, since I know I'm going to have to lose all my money. But then also, what reward am I going to expect from that card? You have the probability, like you have the lucky dice rolls. So, just some numbers are more likely to be rolled than others. In our game, we had a lot of, 3s rolled, James?
Sixes.
Sixes?
Sixes all day.
Sixes all day.
It was at least three rounds that we did not, because I needed a 10, 11, or 12 to do something interesting.
Yeah.
3 rounds of the game went by. The last 3 rounds, no 10s, no 11s, no 12s.
Yeah.
Like, I was very, very frustrated by. Might have shaded my play of that game.
Well, so that was, I'm a pretty patient person for the most part. If y'all know me, I'm pretty patient, pretty easygoing. There may have been a loud exclamation of frustration during that game.
One that will not repeat for the family-friendly audience here.
Perhaps. But much to my enjoyment, 2 rounds later, I was enjoying that frustration with my Dwayne.
I want to talk about one of the elements in the game that I think is really cool and kind of the most gamey for me, and it's the spending at the market. As I said in the explanation, your 3 tracks that you're working on, one is just straight up cash. You earn cash to spend that round. The other is a maintained income level that will consistently go up, not quickly, but it will go up to some degree. When you spend at the market, whatever your cash level is currently at drops to 0. And then to start the next round, you're going to tweak it back up again to whatever your income level is at. So you will see a bit of a bounce back when that happens. But I think what makes that market really interesting is if I'm looking at a card in the market that costs me $7 and I really want that card, but I'm currently sitting at 15 cash, do I want to buy that and waste that other $8 that I have, or do I want to pass on it, maybe buy something that's a bit more expensive that I'm not quite as excited about, and hope that the other players don't pick up that one that's going to cost me less before it comes around? That's a really cool element of the game. I think it's understated in terms of its importance to the game.
Yeah, another aspect of that is you can skip purchasing a card on your turn and save up your money. But then there's that balance of, well, I just a turn passed and I did not add a card to my player area. So it's one less card than if I'd been, quote unquote efficient, right, and gotten a card every single time.
That's what I think. Like, I think I've played this game 3 times now, and I feel like I've played the same strategy, and like, spoiler alert, I haven't won yet. And so when I was like compiling my thoughts on our space-based play, my strategy, like especially for those first few rounds, is get a card every time, no matter what. And I try to focus on like having every sector like filled so that I can have something, because that's what, like, if we're rolling a bunch of 3s, 6s, and then they're adding up to 9s, and I don't have anything in that sector, it's like, okay, well then that feels inefficient because then I'm not gaining anything. Whereas like the alternative is like you can kind of like stack rewards on sectors, and so it's like whenever like a 3, 6, like 9 rolled whatever, then you're getting like a bunch of rewards. And so I constantly struggle with that kind of like mentality every time I play.
I'll speak to one of the most frustrating things that I find with the game, and that is the fact that there are some gaps in the market. So there's 3 different levels of ships you can buy from. And I'm not going to get these numbers exactly right, but the first one is anywhere from like 4 to 6. Then the second one is like 8 or 9 to 10, 11, and the third one is 13 on up. So you come up with these gaps where you'll be right in the middle of 2 of the different stages of cards. I'm sitting at 8, but there's no 1s and there's no 2s. So now I'm faced with not getting a card and waiting an entire round, or taking a card, a less than optimal card. And I just wish those numbers, there was more coverage of those in between numbers when you're looking to buy cards.
I feel like Dwayne just opened Pandora's box by discussing the downsides to this game. So before we get that,
okay,
I do want to say it's also a very easy game to teach. It's quick, it's simple, it's a nice filler game for your game night. It's not gonna burn your brain. It's good fun.
And it's a good introductory game if you're trying to get your lesser experienced board game friend into the hobby. This is a good game to introduce them to.
It's not one that I usually consider like a gateway game as far as when we have new people come out. Hey, let's try this. You've never played like board games outside of Risk and Monopoly. Try this one out. But it does tend to fill in that gap a lot of times. You can teach it in 5 minutes. It plays in under an hour usually. So yeah, it definitely has its place.
Yeah, I think so. When the dice are going in their favor, I think it can be a really fun and enjoyable experience for new players when the dice aren't going in their favor. Not always the case.
It's worth noting, too, that in this game, there is no manipulation of the dice. Whatever you roll on that first roll, that's it. And if you roll something that is good for you, but maybe great for another player, you're just out of luck. That's the way it falls. There's no, at least in the base game and at least in the cards that we saw, there's no dice mitigation. There's no way to rotate the dice around.
I guess you could look at some of the charge cards as mitigation, right? Because if you're like, okay, it's a 6, 4, or 10, and I'm like, yeah, but I can make that 10 and 11 or 12. Yeah. You do have some of that. Not that helped me whatsoever in our most current play.
Right.
Some of the cards allow you to use the number to either the left or right of the card, which begs the question. I wonder if you could do like a really, really powerful card at 12 and just make your whole ship where you'd use the subsequent cards and just play nothing but 12s.
Yeah. That's kind of what I was trying to do. I had something, I think it was in sector 10 or 11, because it's like there are cards that will allow you to kind of go either a sector to the right or like 2 sectors to the right. And so it's like, that's definitely a strategy.
Swapping sectors, swap your sector 12 and sector 9 cards. So
I think that's a card I underutilize a lot.
Easier to get.
It's a strategy.
Yes.
I don't think it's the best strategy.
Sure.
Yeah. With the expansion, so I don't know if y'all have played much with the expansions.
I have not.
I played
just a little bit.
I played a lot with them, and it does not, no spoiler. One of the expansions is technically a little legacy experience, so I won't spoil much about it. It does give you, I'll say, more to do on your turn.
Okay.
But there's still not much dice mitigation, so it's just dice rolling. So it's funny you said 3, 6, 9 earlier, Emily, because in the game we played it was 5 and 6. I played it again a few days later, and it was 3, 6, 9, and I had no 3, 6, 9 on my board, and I had all the same feelings all over again. It was the best.
That's what going back to that Shy Pluto campaign expansion. Sarah mentioned that in her review as well. She highly recommends it for those looking to add just a bit of complexity to the game without it being too overwhelming. Some of the extra mechanisms added in make things even more fun and engaging, as well as more choices for strategy. So
yes, I would highly agree. It's a lot of fun. They have little card packs you can get as well, which we added those in, and it does something really interesting. Whereas it makes the colony cards. So there's a market of cards you can buy that just go out on your board that we've been talking about. But there's also a separate kind of, not mini market, but another market of cards that are pure victory points. But when you buy those cards and put them into your sector, it just kills that sector space for the rest of the game.
So you had like a little bodega of cards to choose from over
That's
there?
right, yeah.
Okay, I see.
You've closed down that portion of your space base and just rented it out to people.
Yep, it's under construction for the rest of the game.
This is
Earning
section
you victory
6.
points.
We have squatters. We don't go in there.
And in the base game, that's it. Those cards go in there, you get your victory points, and it's done. They have some nice little expansion cards that give you ongoing abilities and things that turn those cards into being a little bit extra. So definitely, if you like space, or you're interested in it, check out all the extra stuff.
So when I was checking out the designer's CV on Board Game Geek, I noticed 2 games that he's responsible for that I happen to love, and that's Mystic Vale and Dead Reckoning. Those 2 games share much more DNA, I think, than Space Base does with them. But Dead Reckoning and Mystic Vale are both worth checking out if you've not played them.
Well, it's funny that you found a pair that you like for him, because I have Cubitos, Rolling Heights, and Ready Set Bet, which I all think are better games by him.
Interesting.
So.
Yeah.
John DeClaire is a pretty prolific designer. He puts a lot out there, and across the board, different styles and genres as well.
Okay, I've been dancing around the negatives here. Can I dive in?
Yeah,
if
you weren't, I was going
to.
Okay. So, for one, I do find one of the limitations on this game is that there is very limited player interaction. While you're all engaged, you're all doing something, you're doing absolutely nothing to affect the other players in this game. You are just writing out what your dice rolls are and hoping you can get in the lead.
The way you can affect the other player is by taking
drafting
their
in the market.
Card.
That's about the only one that I can come
Whatever
up with.
you do not be like, I'm going to grab that card next time around, because you will not be grabbing that card
next
next time
around. Because that's what we did that to James. That's where that money component, where it's like if you're one off, that there's a very good chance that card's not going to be back around by the time it's your turn again.
Yeah, when everyone sees you struggling in a sector and they see there's only one card of that sector out there, and it's like, I'm going to take that. And it hurts.
I did feel, from a graphic design element, this is more just me, worth noting that I went through my collection line by line to count how many space-themed games I have in my collection. And I went with a wide,
Definition.
Yeah. So, like, The Crew, In Search of Pluto or Planet 9 or whatever it is, nothing to do with space other than there's a spaceman on the cover. That's one of the 9 space games I have. So space is not my jam. I did not find the art in this game appealing at all. It's kind of like it's a pop art kind of thing. It's fine, but it's not great.
I like the garish pop art. That is a highlight of this game for me.
I was about to say, I do like the art.
Yeah.
I think Sarah mentioned on her review, probably one of my other complaints is that when you start to move away from the basic cards and start to get into the icons and mechanisms on some of the more advanced cards, my eyes glaze over. So I tend to avoid those cards.
That's what when I referenced in like the last episode of the last time I taught it, it oversimplified it in my memory. And so I'm like trying to get the basics out so we can get the game going. Because this is another complaint I have sometimes is that like it can start off really slow. Mm-hmm. Sarah recommended playing the light speed variant so that you can just get a little bit of kind of like an edge in those first few rounds. Otherwise, it's like the first like 10 rounds or so is just like kind of collecting cards. But yeah, like once we got to what does this charge cube card mean? It's like, okay, do I charge it when I roll this number, or do I charge it on my turn, or when someone else rolls this number? Like and then when can I use it? Like it had me going for the rule book almost every time, and I still like wasn't always confident in the explanation I was giving the people I was trying to teach.
Here's my absolutely irrational complaint about this game, though. This got on my nerves more than anything you can imagine while we were playing. So when you look at the spaceships on the card, depending on the class of the spaceship, they're all given a name. So, for example, like in the Star Trek world, there are Galaxy class, there's Constellation class, there's all sorts of different classes of spaceships. Well, in Space Base, the classes are all surnames of science fiction authors, which is okay. You've got some Asimov ships, you've got some Bradbury ships, you've got some Herbert ships. The base level ships are Scott and Knight. The only Scott I can come up with in sci-fi writing is a young lady named Melissa Scott. And the only Knight I could find was a Damon Francis Knight, who was one of the screenwriters for The Twilight Zone. The colony cards, yes, the colony cards are all named after TV and movie science fiction people. So you've got a Serling, a Cameron, and a Kubrick class. Worth noting, there is a Roddenberry class. That's one of the rarer ships in the deck. But I went through a list of all of the top 40 sci-fi authors in history. There are several that are not named on this deck, and that's okay. What bugs the crap out of me is that there was a class of ship named the Tolkien class. I challenge you to tell me what space book J.R.R. Tolkien wrote. I don't think the Hobbits ever went to space. I'm pretty sure. So that just infuriated me. And of course, the first card I drafted was a Tolkien class card, and I just sat there and stared at it for the rest of the game going, it doesn't fit, it doesn't fit, it doesn't fit.
Well, you see, JK, the history of the Lord of the Rings actually began in space with the great gods. And that's all I got.
Okay, don't mess with me.
Yeah, we got another review that came in, and it made me chuckle a little bit. It was signed Mr. D, and he says there's a clue here that the host who introduced me to the game will know. Listeners, Mr. D might in fact be my dad. Gasp, shock, oh. And he much enjoyed the game as well, to the point of it being, right, the conversation of it being a gateway game, right? He actually plays this with his grandkids, so it's game night, family night, also very much enjoys it with the expansions. But I would agree with you, JK, on some of the frustrations of, the lack of player interaction, it kind of feels like multiplayer solitaire.
Yeah.
For most of the game, you're kind of heads down, just looking at what the dice roll mean to you. But the turns go so fast. I guess it doesn't feel the same as other multiplayer solitaires because I'm watching what you're doing on your turn because your rolls matter. So I guess it doesn't feel the same, but when you get down to the nitty gritty of it, yeah, it is. I think
I probably enjoyed it more than a roll and write. There was at least some trash talking and angst coming from your side of the table that made it more fun.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear that because that's not necessarily a complaint in my book. And it's like I'm also like a person that plays the friendly version of Arc Nova because it's like I just don't need that type of interaction in my game for me to enjoy it.
Dwayne, any negatives from you?
Just what I said earlier about the card cost. I'd like a little more coverage on some of those. So it becomes more of a question of, do I want a good card or, at least having an option to buy something worthwhile every round.
So it's worth noting that if you like the idea of a game that is centered around the fact that one player rolls dice and every other player gets rewards for those dice rolls, Space Base, you're not alone. There's a game called Machi Koro, which is probably the first one I remember that used that mechanic. Machi Koro, you're building out a city in Japan, I think, Dwayne. Mm-hmm. I did own Machi Koro for a brief period of time and then sold it. Right about the time I sold it, I discovered Space Base, but I also discovered a game called Valeria Card Kingdoms. Valeria Card Kingdoms is more of a fantasy setting. Again, I'm not a space guy. I'm probably more of a fantasy guy. That one seemed to tickle my fancy a little bit more. Since then, there's been another game that has come out that is called Bad Company, which is a crime-based dice roller. That's probably, if I'm going to play something with this mechanism, I'm going to lean into either Valeria or Bad Company.
Yeah, I've played Valeria once, and I've always wanted to go back to it. It just doesn't pop up in the circle very often. It's been very well supported with all kinds of expansions. And I would if I played that more, I think I might probably end up liking it more than Space Base. Mm-hmm. Machi Koro, we got it, we played it once, and it was such a light experience that I immediately traded it away.
Yeah, there wasn't enough game in there for me.
Yeah.
That's what I'm really glad you brought that up, because my experience of Machi Koro is it was one of those, the person to my right had a bunch of cards that negatively impacted the person to his left. And that like ruined my experience, because then at that point, like when I think about strategy in Space Base, like I was kind of kicking myself because I realized after the fact that it's like, oh no, you didn't diversify your cards at all. Like I got a lot of money, like cards that like give you rewards in money. And then like I'm looking over at JK's board and realize he's already at like 24 victory points. And it's like you need 40 to like trigger endgame. And so after that,
spoiler.
Yeah. And after that, I was like, okay, I gotta start grabbing every victory point card I can possibly get and then hope the dice go in my favor. And so like with Machi Koro, when it's like, oh, it doesn't even matter how good your strategy is, because if the person like to your right is beating up on you, like you're not gonna do well. And so I think that's what I appreciate about Space Base.
Yeah, I wanted to like Bad Company. I shouldn't say that. I liked Bad Company. I had higher hopes for it. I don't know quite what I expected.
It got pretty heavily hyped by a lot of reviewers.
So
it's good.
It is very good, and I'm hoping they support it, because I think right now Space Base with the Shy Pluto expansions and some of the other expansion cards I have beats out base game Bad Company. But if they support it and they fix some of the things that I don't like about Bad Company, it'll probably shoot to the top, because it did finally. It's one of those genres of games that doesn't get pushed forward very often, and it added some fun things to it that I liked what it was doing. So here's hoping.
So I actually owned Machi Koro before I played Space Base. Machi Koro was a family favorite, pretty light, easy to play, plays quickly. When I got Space Base, got rid of Machi Koro. Only went back to Machi Koro for Machi Koro Legacy, which is a fine Legacy game, but we finished the Legacy campaign and it has sat undusted on my shelf of opportunity since then. But having played Bad Company, I like the theme a lot better with Bad Company. I think the mechanics of some of the later Space Base is still preferable to my playstyle.
And that's what, speaking of Manchikoro Legacy, has anyone looked into Space Base Genesis? I think that's coming out this year, too.
That is on the list of releases this year, so we'll have to see what that's like.
Is that Legacy Space Base?
I thought it was Legacy. I might be wrong.
You have my interest now. I have not heard of this.
All right, so our winner of Space Base, if memory serves me correctly, and my BG stats log is updated correct, was JK.
Yes.
JK, walk us through your blast off to victory.
So I kind of look at Space Base, different play style, but it's very similar to a game called Can't Stop. And in Can't Stop, you are rolling pairs of dice, trying to make a common pair of those numbers to work your way up a racetrack. Now, in Can't Stop, the longest track is number 7, because that is statistically the number you're going to roll most often if you're rolling 2 dice. When you look at 2 and 12, you only need 3 wins, 3 sets of 2 or 12 to move up to the top of the track, whereas I think 7 is maybe 12, 14.
12 or 13,
it's a lot.
there.
It's a lot. I kind of applied that same logic to Space Base. So, Emily, you noted that you were kind of going for an even spread throughout your whole Space Base, so you had everything covered. I did not. I focused on 6, 7, and 8. And essentially every opportunity you guys gave me at the market to pick up a 6, 7, or 8, that's what I went after. Built to the point where not only did I have a pretty powerful 6 on my main board, but I think 6s at one point were giving me 4 to 5 different rewards, which just based on the commonality of when that number could come up, either on its own or combined between 2 dice, that's what allowed me to kind of leap to the victory.
That's what, there was like another 3/4 of the way into the game, I realized I had overstacked my higher end cards, where it's like you're really only going to get them if you do the sum of the dice.
Mm-hmm.
And I really wished I had started stacking more of the lower end. So yeah, that 6, 7, 8 strategy worked out amazing for you, obviously.
There's a really fun card in the game too that I don't remember if you drafted it or if you were thinking about getting it, but it's in the 12 position. And essentially, if you roll 12s on your turn 3 times, you win the game. It's just over at that point.
It depends on how many players there are, because there are a few cards. Because that's one of the cards that takes charge cubes.
Yes.
I played that with another person, and he had a card that allows you to move the charge cubes, and that card was in his 6, 7, 8, one of those sectors, and so that's how he ended up winning.
Okay,
because it was he filled up all his charge cubes, but depending how many players there are determines how many charge cubes you need for that sector 12 card.
It's a really powerful card and a great win condition, but the thing is, it's only acceptable on your turn. You have to roll the 12s.
Yes.
If somebody else does, it does you no good.
But I feel like there are card synergies like that where, this power lets me move cubes, but I have this other power that needs cubes that's really hard to get.
Yeah.
You can, if those 2 cards pop up in the market, whether it's those 2 cards, there's other cards that work together as well, you can form strategies around those that helps you maximize your board. But I've tried every game I play of this, I always try something a little bit different. I try to spread myself thin across all the sectors. I try and really beef up on a couple sectors. I feel like I've always found, whether it's 6, 7, 8 or other sectors, folks that have a 1 or 2 really powerful sectors seem to always end up winning. Because if you have a powerful sector that's getting you victory points, it just adds up really fast.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, so I think we need to do our Glee meter. We haven't done that yet. So hosts, are you going to keep it to play, or are you going to trade it away?
I'll go first. I actually thought about this one a little bit, and I'm going to trade it away, because if I won a game where we're looking at statistical probabilities of 2 dice and I collect stuff on other players' turns and I want more player interaction, guys, I'm going back to Catan for that. Catan does Catan does everything I want Space to be, and I get a little more fun out of it. So yeah, I'm gonna trade this one away.
Huh.
Look, I've vented a lot of criticism of this game, and I should probably throw to the caveat, the game is fine. If someone had a half an hour with me and they brought out Space Base and said, hey, would you like to play it? I would sit down and play it with them. But it's not one that's going to end up in my collection. And I think if I were, like you say, Dwayne, if you were going to play something of this genre, it's going to be either Valeria or Bad Company. So this is a trade away for me as well.
Well, for me, I think it's a keep it to play, with the caveat that I would prefer to always play with the expansion, the Shy Pluto, at the very least, Shy Pluto expansion materials, which I don't want to spoil. It just gives you more to do, and it's more fun. So I would prefer to always play with that. So for me, it is a keep it to play. I really enjoy it. Like I said, easy teach, fun around the table. It can last a little bit too long sometimes, but with all the extra stuff, it's fun. So keep it to play.
All right. So with 2 traded aways, 1 keep it to play, I'm the only one left. When we ended that game, it was right after recording episode 1. That was our first recording, and I think we were all kind of worn out by it. Like, it was also a Monday evening.
Don't leave me hanging, Emily.
When we ended the game, I was like, all right, I'm going to trade it away. This is my traded away game. Since reading the reviews, since our conversation, I have decided I want to keep it to play at least one more time.
All right.
Because I want to try a different strategy. And then once I try that one strategy, I might be just, okay, good, I'm done.
6, 7, 8 for the win.
All right.
Yeah.
With 2 keep it to plays and 2 traded ways, that gives Space Base a rating of 2 out of 4 on our Glee meter. 2 out of 4 for Space Base. Well, JK, as the winner of Space Base, you will decide our next game of the show. JK, what's it going to be?
I don't know what year Space Base takes place in, but it's sometime in the distant future. So
I'd like to think it's 2001 XX.
Oh, okay. So we've been to the far future. We've been to space. Let's come back down to Earth in our distant past. We are going to explore a worker placement classic at the dawn of man. We're going to do some Stone Age, guys.
Oh, my God.
It's been a hot minute since I played Stone Age.
I have not
Smelly
played
cup
this.
and all.
Yes, I have the smelly cup.
Oh, and I also have a space, or not Space Base. I also have a Stone Age mat over there, apparently. So, or at least it has been confused as a Stone Age mat several times at conventions. Well, we'd love to hear your thoughts on Stone Age. Send your review to pod@gleefulmeeple for a chance to have your review highlighted on our next episode.
All right. So I think we've talked enough about games that it's time to play a game on air. No, not a board game. A game about board games. This week, I have brought Ratings Roundup.
Ooh.
Does this require a cowboy hat?
It does not.
Yeehaw!
All right, hosts,
It's
I'm
the
going
wildest
to
game in the wilderness.
I'm going to read a review of a game, and you'll have to guess the rating. These are all reviews from BGG, BoardGameGeek.com, and the host closest to the rating in either direction is going to get a point. Ties are friendly, meaning each host will get a point for being the closest rating. All of the games, except for the final round, come from Board Game Geek's top 50 hotness list. I compiled this game in like early March, so March 2024, these games were on the hotness list.
It's kind of funny with your accent. It sounds like you're saying the hot mess list, and I love it.
I might be a hot mess by the end of this. Each host has a little whiteboard paper from a game called Green Team Wins. I'm going to read the review. I'm going to give you what the game is. I'm going to read the review. And each host is going to write their guess on the rating in secret. I will give you one hint, hosts. All of the ratings, except for one, are whole numbers. So there's like one that has a decimal point in it. And that's like, there's only one. So if you want to use decimal points, that might help us not get into ties, but it's totally up to you.
because that half point matters. It must be a really young.
Yes.
It must be a young person. We're like being 16 and a half matters.
I think we should use the decimal point so that I can decimate you guys in this game.
Already
Why?
with the trash talk.
No.
All right. For our first game, Dune Imperium has hit the hotness. Now I feel like I need to enunciate. Chart on BGG once again, probably because of the recent release of Dune Part 2. Here is a review from March 2024. As a game, it flows well. Rules aren't complicated and it's quite intense. Negative aspects. I don't find much that stands out and it's too bland. The theme wasn't exploited enough and none of the actions or the places really makes you feel something of the Dune universe as much as I would expect from a license of this importance. I'd play it again. It's not too long. And as a race, it keeps being interesting till the end. Mechanics-wise, the part I appreciate the most is the 4 small races to grab a few important points. What is the rating?
Are we doing closest without going over or
Closest in either direction.
Okay.
All right, I have my answer.
I have mine.
All right, just waiting on James.
I have mine.
All right, host, go ahead and turn him around. I can't see. Okay, so James has 7, JK has 7.1, and Dwayne has 6.0. Very accurate. Or not accurate, precise. And one host got it exactly correct, and that was James.
Oh,
Points. You know, I felt like that person is a Dune fan who liked the game and just felt like the theme was lacking a little bit. So I went high and it paid off.
Yeah, that's why I brought this game to the table. Some of these reviews, it's just interesting to see what like number they pair with it. And so I wanted to see if y'all were better guessers at the numbers than I was.
We consider Dune a space game, right?
Yeah,
Yep,
sure.
don't like that one either.
But I love the premise of this game because you do get on BGG every so often and see the reviews that are like, this is the best game I've ever played.
6.5.
3 points.
Yeah.
What?
Release date 2025.
All right. So our second game is a game about building zoos for which Dwayne holds much disinterest,
Ugh.
even though everyone around him loves it. Here is your review for Ark Nova. It is a 7 out of 10 fun game hidden in a 1 out of 10 rulebook and setup time.
That's it. That's all we get.
harsh.
That's all you
that's
get.
the review.
All right, I'm locked in.
All right.
All right, I'm good.
All right, let's show them. We got Dwayne at the 5.0, JK at the 4.4, James at the 5. The rating was a 4. So
Oh
JK
my
is in.
gosh. Now look, I don't even like that game, but I know that it's not a 4. Come on.
Well, I mean, if you take his review at face value, you got a 1 and a 7. I mean, closest to the average you can. I mean, 4 rounded up. I mean,
3.5.
yeah.
All right.
You
All
got
right.
84.
And for our third round game, we have Thunder Road Vendetta, a game about shooting and racing cars to be the last one
I'm
standing.
just going to go ahead and pop a 10 on this.
Here is your review. Did not enjoy this one. Felt like
Control yourself, Dwayne.
every turn was just whipping out the helicopter and hoping you roll well and that your opponent doesn't. No strategy, just roll dice, move toy cars, get blown up. I can see why others like it, but it is not for me.
This review's still a 10, right?
I mean, you get to whip out helicopters. Come on.
I mean, to his point, though, there's not a whole lot of strategy to it, but there is fun.
A lot of fun.
Yeah.
Buckets of it.
I can't decide which way this guy's going to go on this, so I'm just going to pop a number on here and hope I've got the gist of it.
All right, let's see him. All right, we got James with the 5, JK with a 3.6, and Dwayne with the 6.0. The rating was a 5.
Hey,
Oh, nailed it, James.
That's what I almost read a perfect 10 review of this one. Because it starts with, for the type of game it is, it's just about perfect. And so I wondered if someone was going to like get tripped up by that sentence and write a 9, but I decided to go with the 5 rating anyway. All right. For the fourth game, we have Sky Team, which is a 2-player cooperative game about landing planes. Here is your review. Good thematic game, but it didn't live up to the hype. It seemed too easy. I need to try beyond the base setup.
Oh.
Oh, because that game does come with a bunch of modules.
It comes with a lot of
Yeah.
wonderfully balanced modules.
So this is a person that's only played the base setup. All right, let's see him. We got James with the 6, JK with the symbol of pi, and Dwayne with the 5.0. The rating was 7.5.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
Very forgiving. And we've knocked out the mystery of the decimal point.
Yes, so that was our decimal game. All right. The last game from our top 50 chart, and also the heaviest, Age of Innovation, is a re-implementation of Terra Mystica that has you terraform your world to expand your faction and create innovations along the way. Here is your review. Absolutely great game and an improvement from Terra Mystica. Sadly, some factions are not properly balanced, but it is great fun anyways. Increases the complexity from Terra Mystica by a bit, so if Terra Mystica was already too much for you, maybe stay away for a while.
I swear, this is a 1.
All right, show your boards.
Oh,
wait, just kidding.
JK's drawing
no.
pictures over here.
Yeah.
It's like playing Celebrity Jeopardy with JK.
Oh, no. Okay.
We have algebra.
James with 9.
JK with 9.
JK has
JK with
x
9.
squared, but x equals 3, so that would be 9 as well. And Dwayne with the 8. So this rating was a 9. So
Oh, wow.
Is there a tiebreaker? What do we do?
I am not good at this.
I get more credit for using more characters in the answer.
ties are friendly in these rounds. So those were our main rounds. All of those games were from the top 50 list. Here are our scores as they stand going into the final round. We have James at 4 points. Dwayne did not get any points
Oh, no.
yet. Hopefully, maybe. We'll see. And JK has 2 points. So for the last round, I decided to check out what games were in the bottom 10 on BGG.
Oh, my God.
And in doing so, I found a lot of recognizable games. So I'm going to let the hosts pick which game they want to hear reviews from. Okay? So we have Monopoly.
Wait, okay. Without seeing your list and only knowing Monopoly is on there, is Battle of the Sexes on here?
No, it's
Oh,
not.
I'm shocked.
Right? Candyland and The Game of Life. Which game would you like to be your final?
I want to hear someone talk smack about Candyland, y'all.
Yeah, but if we have any children listeners, they could cry. That would be sad.
Not with these reviews.
Oh, okay. Bring on Candyland.
All right. James, Candyland cool with you?
I like it.
All right. And just for reference, when I say bottom 10 on BGG, we're talking about 26,000 games.
I was about to ask, do you have the number?
Yes. Yeah. Because my non-board gamer roommate was very upset to hear that Monopoly was in the bottom 10. All right. Candyland. Here is your review. Threw away our old copy just to be gifted a new one for Christmas. I was good that year. Why am I being punished? This game is so broken. First player has a clear advantage, not even debatable. Fourth player should get some kind of starting bonus, but no. How did that get past play testing? Also, no mitigation for drawing a late game cupcake. I have a 23% win rate against a 3-year-old.
The fact that this person thinks they play tested Candyland is the funniest part of that whole review to me.
All right. Host, show your boards. All right. Dwayne with the 2.0, James with the 2, and JK.
A 1-point peppermint stick.
Yeah. And JK gets the final points.
Oh.
So that puts our scores with Dwayne in the bottom with 0 points. Sorry, buddy. JK with 3 points, and James, our winner today, with 4 points.
So close.
Eking out the win. All that math.
Some honorable mentions of some of these reviews because they were just so funny. Monopoly, from the Perfect 10 rating, we had can a game get any better? That was it.
That was it?
That was
That
the
was the
comment.
review? Oh, wow.
And then another 10 rating. Ignore the criticism. Monopoly is still one of the best games ever. It is chaotic and can be frustrating, but at the same time, it's very rewarding. People who say Monopoly is luck, they don't understand strategy. If you are a capitalist, you will love it. And then from a 7 rating, a classic, good fun, if not a little tedious at times, successfully satirizes capitalism.
Yeah, they may not have the
grasp.
the grasp of what that game is trying to teach.
Yeah.
You only win if you bankrupt everyone else. Ever.
And then honorable mention review from Candyland. This game can play itself towards its completely randomly selected winner. It's good for kids to learn colors, taking turns, counting spaces, and winning and losing. But as a game, it's really more of a simulation, which I think is a good point to remember. With like 4 of us adults, we play a lot of like heavy games or like light games that are definitely more geared towards adults, but games are for kids too.
I don't understand.
I've got nothing bad to say about Candyland. We bought it for my son, and he played it, and now he refuses to play any games. So
You can make that game. You can make that game better for everyone involved, including young children, if you just give them the option: draw 2 cards, choose which one you want to play. It introduces, it's a simple change that makes the game a little more bearable.
And that is the Gleeful Meeple Pod Candyland variant.
Then you make one of the players the traitor.
Yes.
And step back and watch.
Is he the good King Lollipop, or is he a Cylon?
All right, JK, play us out.
All right, folks, I'm sure you've had enough of us for the evening. We're kind of getting tired of each other. So for starters, let's thank our sponsor for today, Crystal Pepsi. You've never seen a taste like this. Crystal Pepsi, found in all of your grocery stores, surely taking up space right next to Coke and Pepsi regular. You can meet us up at any of our events coming up in April. The Gleeful Meeple Group actually has 8 events all through April.
8 events?
8
We are
events.
crazy. Coming up soonest, 4/2, April 2nd, we will be at Highwire in the Gulch. 4/9, April 9th, we will be at Tailgate West. And the day after, we will be at Jackalope in Wedgwood, Houston. You can email us at pod@gleefulmeeple.com. And as Emily mentioned earlier in the episode, our Instagram tag is @gleefulmeeplepod. We thank you for listening. We hope you had a good time. We'll talk with y'all soon.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye, Gleeples.
Bye, everybody.